Live from our super secret studios above Jacques' Flower Shop, this is Girard at Large.
Yeah, baby!
Good morning, Manchester.
Live and local. News, sports, politics, traffic, and weather. Rich isn't afraid to tackle the tough questions.
Who told you you can eat my cookies? You talking to me?
Yeah, I hear you had a question for me.
It's all here on the Girard at Large radio program.
Hello?
On 90.7 WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio.
I'm sorry, who'd you say you were?
I am your host, Rich Girard. Thanks for tuning in.
That's right.
Here's Richard.
This morning, I'm just hoping to avoid a food fight. As you know, we're excited to announce that we've got Budget Committee members Elizabeth Dubrulle and John Burt coming in this morning. I have listened on multiple occasions now to our January 14th interview with Burt that set Ms. Dubrulle on a harangue against your ever humble host. By the way, you can find us on the web at girardatlarge.com, where you can stream us live or get to our archives. John Burt has arrived for his tete-a-tete with Ms. Dubrulle. And
morning, John.
He is displaying a calculator.
And
Elizabeth Dubrulle has
coughing.
arrived. She, too, has a calculator. We are going to have dueling calculators. Look at that. They even identical. Did the Budget Committee give you guys those calendars? So they have exactly the same calculators. They're smiling at each other. We've got thumbs up. Oh,
It's nice to see the Sybil thing.
Now, guys, you have to promise me after all of the promotion of this, you're not going to be polite and have everyone go away. Oh, that was lame. Can we have a little fake yelling anyway? Yeah, we'll have a little. Can you slam your hands on the table or something just to let people know that there's a real John Burt taking place?
We disagree on everything, but the thing is, I think we actually like one another.
Oh,
so
jeez.
we always get along.
Nice to know that.
I get mad at him a lot, but I can't stay mad at him.
Oh, well, he is certainly an affable fellow. Although I would say, after reading your Facebook posts with friends like you, but anyway, so Dubrulle and Burt are in the house, which means we will be ready to go as advertised at 6:23 this morning. We will take your calls this morning, too, all morning long, as we always do, at 672-0573. That's 672-0573. Even during the polite discussion, duking it out debate, local budget committee brawl.
It's not that often that we see folks that disagree that actually like each other. So
I
this
know,
is very intriguing
it is.
to me.
I mean, I almost thought I might need the referee whistle just to, send everybody back to their neutral corner, but I guess not.
Well, what's our theme song going to be?
Oh, I'm going to leave that up to Dave.
I was going to play Edwin Starr War, but I'm thinking I'd like to teach the world to sing might fit better with you two guys.
How about Ebony and Ivory?
Oh,
I like that. That might work.
as advertised, joining us now are Budget Committee members Elizabeth Dubrulle and John Burt from the town of Goffstown. They are here because of a Facebook post that Ms. Dubrulle, Elizabeth, put up on our page. I think it's fair to say she was sharply critical of some of the statements made by Mr. Burt about what he had to say about the Goffstown budget. And, she gave your humble host here the business as well for not challenging him on the various points. So I invited her to do the challenging, and she agreed. John Burt agreed, and here we go. So I think what we're going to do to start is allow each of you to take a moment or two to introduce yourselves, who you are personally, politically, I guess why you're involved in the town of Goffstown politics, the way you are, and then we'll have at it, as it were. So we'll start ladies first. Yes, I'm a chauvinist. What can I do?
Okay. I'm Elizabeth Dubrulle. I'm a Budget Committee member. I was elected in 2011. I have been
now, is this your first foray into elected politics? Have you been on any other board or commission in the town?
No, this is my first elected office. I've done a lot of volunteer work with the town and in the community, though. I've been the chair of the Historic District Commission. I chaired the town's 250th anniversary.
Yes, and you were kind enough to remind me that you were here with Scott Gross many, many moons ago as that celebration was coming.
I wrote a book about Goffstown called Goffstown Reborn.
Oh, really?
And I'm a professor at St. A's. And I'm also a freelance editor. I'm a stay-at-home mom is really my main thing, but those other jobs let me do that. I do all of them at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Politically, I am a supporter of the schools. I believe in strong services, but as my voting record shows, I'm probably right on the border between a fiscal conservative and a moderate.
Okay. Representative Burt, or Budget Committee Burt. We'll just call you Burt.
Yes.
Go ahead, John.
Well, I'm Representative John Burt, and I also sit on the Budget Committee and the Solid Waste Committee here in town.
Oh, some would say they're probably one and the same, budget and solid waste.
Well, they're pretty close some days. I would say I'm probably the most conservative member the Budget Committee has seen.
Elizabeth is nodding yes.
Yes, in many, many years.
Okay.
So when I hear Elizabeth say that she's a moderate conservative, I'm the true conservative there. And the issue is that the Budget Committee doesn't want to do the hard work, which is, where's our money? It's in employees. And that was brought up one time. And of course, it kind of stirred the bee's nest a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But really, we have to look at that. Employees paying 10% for their health care, it's just not enough.
So, Elizabeth, you said that we'll get why don't we get to it? Burt can't do math correctly because the figures he gave you for the projected tax increase were grossly exaggerated. I guess that is as good a place as any to start. What math did John Burt get wrong?
It is. Quickly, though, even that statement I would take issue with that John just made. We can go through that a little bit later. But first of all, you need to have a disclaimer. Neither John nor I speak for the Budget Committee.
Absolutely.
Okay, we represent ourselves. Neither of us has been empowered by the Budget Committee to represent them. For everything I'm going to cover today, the sources that I used are the meeting minutes for the town and school governing bodies. You can look them up online. If you missed the meetings themselves and want to watch them, you can watch them on PEG on demand. The initial thing, and I have all the claims written out here, and I have the minutes that they appeared on the segment if anybody wants to check them. But the numbers that John originally gave, they're pretty much all wrong. The total he gave was, he says, if everything passes, it's going to be an increase of just about $658 just in my taxes, which is 15%. That's wrong. It's grossly wrong. The actual truth of the matter, and this is from the material that was handed out to the public at the Budget Committee public hearing and at the deliberative session, and I'll break this down for everybody if you want to take note of it. The school budget, if it passes, will be an increase of $1.03 per thousand.
What's the current tax rate in the town?
I have that.
All right, she's looking through her.
My papers. There you go.
She's looking through her paperwork.
The current for the town, the local school rate is $12.17. That's
just for the town?
Yes, that's local.
Okay.
That's not the state school rate.
And the state school rate is what, 217 or
249?
249. And do you have a municipal education tax?
No.
So your total tax rate in Goffstown is?
Well, we have a town tax rate and a school tax rate.
What's the school tax rate?
The school tax rate is $12.17.
What's the town tax rate?
$9.39.
So $9.39. And
yes.
You say if the school budget passes, the school rate of $12.17 will go up by $1.03.
Yes.
Okay. Please continue.
If the default budget passes, it's still going to go up by 73 cents.
Mm-hmm.
If the elementary schools bond passes, it's 20 cents this year and an average of 71 cents in the next 19 years.
So it's going to go up 71 cents a year for 19 years?
No.
Oh, it's going to be 71 cents for the next 19 years.
Well,
plus or minus.
Average. Mm-hmm. And this is something that has gotten dropped out of all the coverage. Next year, and that's another piece of paper I have in this pile, but next year it actually would be
90 cents.
Yes, 90 cents.
And that's what I was calculating.
Okay, so if it passes, then next year, for tax purposes, it'll be another 90 cents on the Goffstown tax rate.
Right.
So we're up to $1.93.
Right. That's for the school. For the town, if the budget passes, it's 21 cents.
Okay.
Okay, which, by the way, brings the town rate up to a point that is still less than it was in 2011. The town rate dropped substantially last year, and it's still, even with the new budget and the 21 cents, it won't be back where it was.
Well, that's the town rate. And so you're looking at really three separate tax rates or three separate taxes, property taxes that people will pay. There's the town rate, there's the school district rate, and then there's the state education rate.
Yeah, and
correct?
there's also a county tax.
And that county tax is what?
$1.13.
It's $1.13.
We have no control over the state school rate.
No, or the county tax
Right.
rate. Those are, here it is, you must pay. But
Right.
what you do control, by my quick math, let's see, 940 and 12. So you're at $21.46, 56 cents.
Yeah, so that's the 21 cents is the increase to the town side. If the default budget passes on that side, I'm estimating that the increase would be about 10 cents. The town has not released that number.
Right. Now, John, though, did not talk about what would happen with the passage of the default budgets. He talked about if everything that the Budget Committee recommends passes, then he's looking at a property tax hike of roughly 15%.
He's not. He is if everything passes, because you didn't quite let me finish. If all the warrant articles pass, it's another 10 cents.
So there's a series of warrant articles.
3 warrant articles with a tax impact.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. The total, if everything passes, is $1.54 per thousand increase.
Well, I just did some math here, and I've got $1.03 plus 90 plus 21 plus 10, and I'm coming up with $2.24.
No, because it's 20 cents on the elementary school bond this year.
Where did the 90 cents come from?
That's next year.
But it's payable in February of next year.
What?
Is that part of
That's what I'm reading.
No, that's when the school people pay their property taxes when they in July and December. That's when the school makes its payment.
But the next, yes. Well, they have to have the money.
Well, John, what payment are you talking about so we can get to the bottom of this?
My numbers, what I used was with the CIP, because this
CIP being the Community Improvement Program.
Yes, there was a ton of money in there. The figures I used when I came on the show, it was in December.
It was January 14th. It was right after.
Oh, okay, January 14th. Yes.
Yeah, it was right after the whole brouhaha over Harvey creating brochures to encourage people to vote for the warrant article.
Yes.
That would pay for the renovations to the schools. That was the original reason why you were on the show, was to talk about that and the fact that they didn't follow political campaign laws and identify themselves as the creators or funders of the material.
Well, I was using with the CIP, which was still before us, I believe.
Okay.
And that was the numbers, and then plus the other numbers that I come out. I come up with an increase of about $300. Which
is still half of what you said it was.
Yes, because we have redefined the numbers.
No. First of all, CIP is part of the operating budget. Okay, there's a couple of warrant articles that are separate, but most of CIP is part of the operating budget. It's not something separate that you vote on as CIP. Okay, there's 100 and
so none of the warrant articles are involved with the CIP.
Yes, some of them are. I just said that. There's a few separate warrant articles. The other purchases are in the operating budget.
Okay.
And although we had not taken our final votes at the time John was here, we had already taken our preliminary votes, and we had taken it to the public to say, this is what we are offering to you. If we didn't receive at the Budget Committee public hearing, we didn't receive any negative feedback. John wasn't there, so he probably didn't hear it, but we didn't receive any sort of public input that would convince us to change our votes. So we already had these numbers. The point is that the total, and the 20 cents and the 90 cents, we were told it was going to be a 20-cent increase for the elementary schools bonds.
I thought I read something in the local newspaper that if the bonds passed, it would go up by 71 cents.
That's the average for over the 20-year period.
Okay. So do you think how do I put this? Do you think it's correct math to take a look at an average over time as opposed to the actual impact of the bond over its life?
Well, I mean, it's not my job to promote these things, to pass them. It's my job to look at them and decide and recommend them or not. personally, yeah, I do think it gives you a better idea to have an average. But I also think people should know that it's going to be higher in the first few years, and it's going to gradually fall over the years. By the last year, it's 55 cents. But it's 20 cents for this initial year. And then in subsequent years, it's 90 cents and then 88 cents and 86 cents and so forth and so on. The numbers that we had is that it would be an increase of $1.54 per thousand. For John, with the numbers I calculate, that would be an increase $270 on his property tax. And it's an increase of about 5.5%, which is a third of what he said it was.
Well, John?
Well, also, there's Article 13 through 16, which is used, and I used this number, which was used in unreserved funds, and it's unprecedented that they've done this. And what happened is they took money that was left over from last year, and they're just buying stuff, and it comes up to $819,069.
That is money. You can discuss this with Scott Gross when he comes on.
Well, I discussed it with Dan Cloutier, and what Dan told me is this does have a tax impact because that money in the past has always come back to the taxpayers and was used to lower the tax rate, or it was kept in the unreserved fund to help us get a better bond or et cetera. Well, apparently we have enough money in there to keep a good bond. That's what I understand. So they're spending $119,000 and they're listing it. And this is what's wrong here is they are listing it no amount to be raised from taxation. Well, this is tax money.
Right. So you're talking about the action they took back on June 18th. I know I was there. Where who's the elderly member of the school board, the lady with the oxygen?
Sue Tremblay.
Sue Tremblay.
Oh yes, yeah.
Where she made the statement that she didn't like the way things were going in the budget, and she wasn't happy about turning back $500,000, and she wanted to know if there were things they could spend the money on. And that night they voted to spend, I think it was $100,000 or $120,000 of the funds that they were going to have left over rather than turn them back to the town. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I think the school money came back to us. I think the school money has to come back to us. Well, this is extra money in the town.
We're going to wrap up this discussion on the differences in the numbers here, I think, in short order so we can get on to some of the other things. But as I calculate the math, this year, not counting the potential tax impact in future years of the $14 million bond that Harvey Construction is advocating for, the tax rate in Goffstown will go up $1.54, and of which you control. Okay, you don't control what the state does. You don't control what the county does. You have to pay those. Those are you will pays. You're actually looking at a tax hike in the town of Goffstown of 7%. Can we at least agree on those numbers?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So, as members of the budget committee, do you think in these times it is prudent to recommend that your taxpayers experience a 7% increase in what they're going to pay?
No.
I think you have to look at the whole thing. I mean, first of all, as I said, I came on the show to talk about the inaccuracies, statements that John made. And if we want to talk about the budget at the end, I'm happy to go through it. But I think when you balance what you can potentially lose, the loss of service, I mean, that's the choice people are making.
Mm-hmm.
That's the choice the voters are making.
Okay. So, John, it looks like 7%. You said it could be as high as 15. Did we miss some numbers? Was there some calculation that you did that we should be aware of?
Yeah, there's Article 13 through 16.
Okay, let's get to Articles 13 through 16. What are those? And
it's $819,000, and that's about $101 in my tax.
Now, where is that $819,000 coming from? I don't understand what these articles are or where this money is.
Well, it's for new software. What's the other one? Fixing the rails to trails, although they're saying it's not. It's to fix a culvert. Mm-hmm. But what is above the culvert?
So you're saying
rails to trails.
You're saying that there is unexpended funds in the town or school district budgets this year that are being spent rather than returned to the taxpayers, and you're factoring that into the discussion over whether or not there's a bigger than perceived tax hike.
Yes, because this is not a hidden tax because they've already taxed us, but this money should have came back to us.
Okay, so you're arguing that 7% then could in fact be lower, and you're doing a calculation that somehow says because it's not lower, it's higher.
Yes.
Okay.
There's no reason to think that they would return that money. Right now, there's 4.5 million, somewhere in that ballpark. It's not from 1 year. It's from multiple years. And it's not on the school side. The school cannot keep any unreserved funds. It's on the town side. And I'm going to I don't make this policy decision. Scott Gross makes this policy decision, and he's already said he'll come on the show. Why don't you talk to him about it, because he is the master of this topic. Mm-hmm. But there's no evidence. We were not given a choice in the budget committee that we can return this money to the taxpayer or we can buy these things. So it's not additional funds that people would be required to pay in the coming year.
But as a member of the budget committee, don't you have the authority, say, to reduce the expenditures by some of the surpluses they're proposing to spend? So that
we
the
reduced
taxpayers don't have to do that?
expenditures. We reduced expenditures as much as we possibly could without injuring the services that the town was provided. We don't get to decide which services the town provides. We don't get to set those policies. Our job is to make sure that we try and provide those services as cheaply as possible. If you want to change those, you have to go to the selectmen.
Okay. We have Jeff on the line who wants to chime in. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning. I'm listening to this conversation, and it's a little frustrating because it sounds to me that all of the budget and all of the policies that you guys are discussing, or the wants and needs of the school system, are all pretty much written down in some sort of document and paper. Is that correct? Hello?
Are you asking whether or not the budget requests are written down?
Yes. Are they written down?
Yeah, they send in a proposed budget, and it's all posted online on the web.
Okay. And it sounds to me that the two of you are interpreting the needs of the school based on the budget that's given. Is that correct?
Well, we're actually talking about the town, not the school right now.
Well, the town, I'm sorry. I apologize. I get, so if all the facts are there, you guys you have a different opinion of how the money should be spent?
Well, I would say, yes.
Or if it should be spent.
If it should be spent.
If it should be spent. Well, what's the money there for if it's not to be used to better, the final outcome of why the budget is there?
It's to be used to, some of that money could have been returned to the taxpayers to help my neighbors, myself, and others that, need to keep a low tax rate.
Okay.
This new, now 7% tax increase, that's just huge. Did you get a 7% pay raise this year?
No, and I agree with you. So maybe now is not the time to be raising taxes on people that can't afford them. You guys probably know this, but a lot of people are working 2 different jobs to just get by based on, and I'm one of them, based on the economy and the way things are going. Raising taxes is not the answer. I'm sorry, people, it isn't. So maybe we should
on my
do
budget
without.
committee, and I'm not speaking, and Elizabeth also said we're not speaking for the budget committee, but some on my budget committee, whatever the school wants and somewhat whatever the town wants, they're going to get.
Okay. But
All right, Jeff, I'd like to appreciate your call. I'd like to move on because there are some other alleged inaccuracies in what John Burt said in our January 14th interview that I'd like to move on to and give Elizabeth the opportunity to make her point and John the ability to defend himself. So thank you for calling.
Okay, I have one more thing to say.
Okay.
Can't we all just get along?
We do.
All right, guys.
To me, having Elizabeth here and I am speaking, this is really what the voters really deserve, because we are discussing the issues. We're doing it polite. And really, we need just to get this information out.
Well, and I appreciate your both coming on our show as a conduit to do that. So, Elizabeth, I will allow you the I will grant you the opportunity now to move on to a couple other areas where you would like to challenge Mr. Burt.
Okay. He made a claim that basically the budget committee is now full of people who had served on the school board stepped down and we're now serving on the budget committee. That basically we were a bunch of plants. That's completely inaccurate. And I'll go through this pretty quickly. There were 5 of us elected in 2011. 4 of us had never held public office before, like myself. We had nothing to do with the budget committee. The school board or the budget committee for that matter, because we'd never held public office. The only one he could possibly be referring to is Phil Kendall, who actually started his career in public service on the budget committee. He did serve a term on the school board. Then he came back. He was not on any board for a year, and then he came back and he was on the budget committee for a year, and he's actually since resigned.
So how many members on the budget committee?
There's 14, and right now
14.
Of the 14 of us, there are only 2 that could possibly have any association with the school board, as John's talking about. One of which is Scott Gross, who's the selectman's rep, and before he was a selectman, he was the chairman of the school board. Right. The other one is Diane McCarthy, who is the actual school board rep. She has to be on the school board to serve as their rep.
John, would you care to clarify your statement?
Absolutely. On this part is easy. Last year, not this current year we're in, but last year, all the schoolies sat in one little corner and beat the hell out of us every time Dan Cloutier or any of us made a motion to cut the school tax.
So when you say the schoolies, you don't mean people who officially sat on the school board?
I did say on the school board, okay. But there was talk, and this is what's being told to me, that Phil Kendall and the others, this little group of schoolies, as I call them, they said, look, we got to get on that budget committee.
So who are the schoolies? Are they so-called pro-school people who are going to be more favorable to school spending? Is that your assertion?
Yes. Well, no, they'll just give the school whatever they want, basically. They'll nickel and dime like the books. But again, we need to go to the hardcore. And when I brought that up, Scott Gross attacks my wife. And that, he apologized. And so that's over with. But bottom line, a bunch of people agreed at the end. Goes, you know what? We probably should talk about this.
Now, let me ask this. In the last round of elections, see, I'm pretty familiar with the groups and how they organize in the city of Manchester, but you get me into the towns, and I'm a little out of it. Are there taxpayer groups in town? Are there so-called pro-school groups in town? Are there lobbies that get involved, or activist groups that get involved in elections and try to back a slate of candidates because they'll be more favorable to the taxpayer, or more favorable to the school department, or more favorable to the firemen, or what I'm asking here?
I don't think there's anything that's active right now. There was a taxpayer group. Sorry, there was a taxpayer group that's not very active right now. There was what John's referring to is a group of people called Goffstown Matters. I was a member of that group. I ran the website. We were basically just a people from all different walks of life who didn't like what was happening on the budget committee. And there were seniors, there were new parents.
What was it that you didn't like about what was happening on the budget committee?
We didn't like the way they were. This is hashing up an old argument at this point. It's 2 years old, but we didn't like the way they were proceeding. We didn't like how much they were trying to cut. We don't think they were asking good questions of our town and school officials before they were making these decisions. We just didn't like the way they were proceeding.
So organized and you supported candidates.
Well, I don't know if
yourself.
organized. Yeah, we got together and we talked about it, and we all said, hey, we should start writing letters to the paper, and we should show up to the meetings.
Right. So is it wrong then to say that a certain group of people who believed that things should happen a certain way got behind candidates that are now making that way happen?
Not necessarily, because first of all, I think if you look at the whole grand scheme of things, there was never any sort of political litmus test. It was never, we're going to give the schools whatever they want. We just didn't like the way they were doing things. And again, I'm going to refer to my voting record. If you look at it, I'm the one who's been proposing some of the biggest cuts to the schools. I'm the one who proposed a $200,000 cut to the budget that Mr. Burt didn't vote for.
John?
Well, and what was that?
The roof at Mountain View. We had information that it could probably last maybe a year longer. And I'm the one who's made the motion, and I said, I think we're asking the taxpayers a little too much this year. I think we need to cut back. Let's cut this roof. If the school board wants to put on their separate warrant article, that's their business. But I wanted to cut it out of the operating budget. The motion failed. John Burt, Ivan Beliveau, Guy Karen, they all voted to keep the $200,000 in that budget.
John?
Thinking back, I believe, because if it went to a special warrant article and it failed, then they could not repair the roof.
That's true, but I
that's
thought that
RSA.
was a risk that I was willing
Right.
to take.
Well, how big is the Goffstown School District's operating budget?
About 36 million,
Yeah.
37
Yeah, it's
million.
about 37 million.
So out of 37 million, now did you propose other cuts? Because 200 grand on 37 million is a statistical anomaly.
I did propose other cuts, but John is right about one thing. I mean, 75% of that budget is tied up in personnel costs. We did. The thing is, the budget committee did look at it. John wasn't at those meetings, unfortunately. He, for a variety of personal reasons, he was not at a lot of the budget committee meetings this year. In fact, he was only at 5 out of the 13. We did spend more than just a few minutes. We talked about it at great length.
Right, but what did you cut?
We didn't cut anything on the
Zero.
personnel lines because I think that's irresponsible. That's not our place.
It is.
It is not.
Where else are we going to get the money? We're going to keep nickel and diming the books? We can only take so many books away from the children.
We cannot start to look. People complain about judges who legislate from the bench. The budget committee cannot govern from the budget committee. You have to govern
So you're
from the
saying that
selectmen and the school board.
Well, are you saying that the budget committee then has to be a rubber stamp for anything?
No.
Let me finish.
That's
For
what it
anything
is.
that the selectmen and the school board ask for if it involves personnel costs?
No,
Well, then why can't you affect larger cuts that would affect personnel?
because you could, but I think it's irresponsible. You can do what we did this year, which is have long, serious discussions about this, which is tell the selectmen we don't think their budget's going to pass if they keep raising personnel costs. And the selectmen and the school board are trying to do what they can do. There's
Right,
some
but
big
don't you-
movements this year.
But don't you have what's called a default budget, which is if the budget committee's budget recommendation goes down, the default budget is what you spent last year plus the increases in things like your labor contracts, utility
Minus
costs, and everything
one-time costs.
else. Minus one-time costs. So, this could go easily for another segment or two, but I'm afraid we're out of time. We'll have to do it again. Would you
Yes.
like to
We
do this
will.
again?
The only thing I want to say is the playground at Bartlett was entirely funded through private donations. You guys made some wisecracks about it coming out of the school budget.
All I said was
People raised $60,000 on their own to fund that playground.
well, that's great. All I said was I know they built a playground. I didn't say who built it.
No, I believe you. The comment was more along the lines of the school board paid for that playground. They did not.
I'll go back and listen to the archive.
Fine.
I did note that there were some improvements to that school, including a playground. I don't know that I said anybody paid for it, but I'll listen again. Elizabeth Dubrulle, thank you for joining us here this morning on Girard at Large. John Burt, thank you for joining us this morning.
Well,
thank you
thanks for having me
hashing
on.
out these conversations. We'd like to have you back, and so we can maybe continue the dialogue about spending in Goffstown.
Yes.
All right. Good morning, Manchester, and to those of you in the surrounding towns, this is Girard at Large, and I am your I Survived the Great Goffstown Budget Battle host, Rich Girard. Thanks for tuning in. You can find us on the web at girardatlarge.com, and you can find us on Facebook and Twitter. We have one humble request. Please like us. Please follow us. We wish to crush all those who would hide information from us. And the bigger we are, the scarier we are, the hairier we are, the more likely it is people will reckon with us. And I'll tell you, you say this, but without Facebook, we probably wouldn't have had this debate because Elizabeth Dubrulle was very upset with us on Facebook for the interview with John Burt. And I'm not entirely sure she was altogether happy when she left because there were a litany of things that she wanted to take issue with that she didn't get to. So I will, despite having listened to that archive, I don't know how many times, I will go back and I will listen to make sure I did not misstate who paid for the playground behind Bartlett Elementary School. But nonetheless, I appreciate the comments that they both made toward the end, especially John, about this is what, the people need to hear, these polite discussions about the issues and what needs to be done. And you know what I think is that John probably, in doing the calculations, who knows if he had a calculation error. I don't think he came on to willfully misrepresent stuff. I did tell Scott Gross that we would have him on the show after we had these two, so we'll get a better understanding of the Goffstown budget process and what's facing him there. But, it just strikes me as interesting that, the issues don't change no matter where they are. Manchester's issues get a lot more attention, I think, than a lot of the towns because they're on order of scale bigger. They affect more people. Manchester is the home of the state's largest newspaper, the state's only television station, I mean, network affiliated television station. It's got, it just is what it is. But, we've got Elizabeth Dubrulle here talking about making a motion to cut $200,000 from to fix the roof over at Mountain View Middle School without wanting to touch employee compensation. And we've got John Burt saying, you can only not fix the roof and not buy books for so long. 75% of your money is here. It needs to be gone after. Technically, when you hear, well, technically we could, but I don't think it's our role. I don't know what that means. But it would appear that some of the numbers needed to be correct. And maybe, John, when you said, school board members, former school board members, or whatever it was that he said, I think maybe what he went to talk about is school lobby. What does appear clear to me is that this Goffstown Matters group that Elizabeth was talking about that was formed a couple of years ago, clearly, and we heard about this on our adorable little radio show. I think we had, was it Guy Karen in? He was a budget committee member back then. But we heard about this group, and it sounds to me, I'm going to see if I can't find it online. Hey, Steve, you want to see if you can track it down? You don't want me trying to find it while I'm doing our adorable little show.
Well, I will say this.
You know what? Never mind. I found it.
I will say this, though, and I'll let you go to your point. It's nice to see folks that come in and don't necessarily disagree, but they still like each other. And they can sit here and have
I'm not sure how much they liked each other by the end of it.
But I mean, it was pretty considerate and cordial, don't you think?
It was. I mean,
for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, I think Elizabeth was getting a little frustrated at the end because she wasn't, there just wasn't enough time to get onto some of the stuff that we wanted to talk about. And it's always dangerous as the host to get into these discussions, where one is pointing fingers at the other, who's pointing fingers back, and you try to avoid the squabble over who said what or what it meant and whatnot. And I'm honestly not sure I was all together great at that at the beginning. Of the debate. That first segment flew by, and we hadn't really moved off of the question about whether or not it's a 10% increase, a 7% increase, a 15% increase. But I'll tell you what sticks with me. And by the way, I found it, but it says justhost.com. So the material on that site is not there, at least on my browser. But in the write-up that shows up on my search, it says, "We are a group of Goffstown residents who are concerned with maintaining the delicate balance between the taxes we can afford and the services we need." There was a mayor named Bob Baines who made the argument that people will pay for higher taxes as long as they're getting the services that they want. He lost. Frank Ginta took him out in that campaign. And I'm just not sure. And actually, I found another entry, and it's on this other website. Okay, Goffstown Politics. Let me see if I can get to the link through here. Now my curiosity is up. And the website is taken down. It just goes to justhost.com. So there's no more information available on that website for us to.
Well, this goes back to Jeff's phone call a little bit when you want to talk about that. He said he has 2 jobs. We're having a hard time making ends meet. I work 3 jobs, Rich, and I ain't applying for a 4th. You know what I'm saying? I've paid enough in. I don't even have any kids in the school system, so I'm paying for other people's kids to go to school, which I don't mind doing because we've talked about how smart kids are better for everybody's future, right?
That's right.
So I don't mind paying in, but you know what? Tapped out, man. I'm not applying for a 4th job to fund.
And what I do find somewhat shocking is that Dubrulle seems to be okay with a 7% increase in taxes. Now, when you add the county and the state taxes to it, it's more like a 5.5% on the overall tax rate. But for what the town of Goffstown can control, through its budget committee, through its school board, through its board of selectmen, you're still looking at a 7% increase in taxes. Now, that will bring Goffstown's total tax rate up to almost $27 per thousand.
It's only a 7% increase.
Right, but we're maintaining vital services. We hear this argument all the time, maintaining vital services. You hear it in Manchester. You hear it all around. And really, you cannot tackle. Now, she was saying something, on the way out, and I want to look into this too, that Goffstown has apparently negotiated a new contract with its teachers union that has eliminated the step raises, the automatic pay raises that you get just for surviving another year in the system.
So it's going to be merit-based now?
Well, that's what they say. They've eliminated steps and COLAs, and now they're going to have a merit-based pay system on a scale, on a sliding scale of anywhere from 1% to 3%, which means no matter what happens, you get a 1% pay raise.
So it's technically still a step.
Well, probably a step without. Of course, the steps in Manchester, by the way, average 5.5%. So if it's a step, it's a little step, but it's a step nonetheless.
It's a baby step.
And I said to Elizabeth before she left, and I really do want to have her and John back to talk about these issues. I think it's healthy for the town. I think it's good for the show. I think it informs the dialogue that's happening in budget committees, school districts, and selectmen, town councils, certainly the city of Manchester, throughout the region. By the way, we have a breaking story out of the town of Litchfield. We'll have a guest on there where a former school board member is coming forward to take issue with that school board and how it's characterizing a vote by the budget committee there. So we'll have the goods on that. But the idea. Okay, now we took a look at this in Manchester. We've referred to it often with great sour taste in our mouth, called the Yarger-Decker Personnel Classification Study, where we came up with a allegedly merit-based system where employees could get an up to 3% pay raise per year based on the quality of their work. And we thought, yay, we're coming in here and we're going to institute a merit-based pay system. And it, corrected a lot of issues that we had, et cetera, et cetera. But so we passed that, and then Mayor Wazorek proposed the first budget that reflected those changes. And it became quickly apparent that we had been suckered. Because what was a so-called merit-based pay system conveyed literally 3% pay raises on 90% of the city's employees outside of the teachers. So really what we did was we built in an unofficial, never-ending 3% step into the city's classification system. And on top of that, we were negotiating general pay raises and cost of living increases. So I figured it out. True story. When I figured it out because the firemen were the first one to come in and we were discussing their contract. And I figured it out. And Jean Brassard, who was then the president of the Firemen's Union, figured out that I figured it out by the questions that I was asking. And he said that night, they went back to their executive board and said, if we don't accept this now, because they were still squabbling over some of the terms. So if we don't accept this now, Girard's going to have time to undo it. He will show them what this is, and we will not get it. So they literally came back at the next meeting. All of their issues and problems gone. We accept. And Jean told me that, so I'm not making this up. Jean told me that, and then it was only myself, Alderman Tim Reiniger, and Alderman Bill Shea, who came forward and tried to rescind that personnel classification study, because we saw in the first budget the huge impact that it's had, and it's had a devastating impact on the city of Manchester's ability to negotiate and to provide services and to buy the basic materials, frankly, and do the basic maintenance work that the people we employ need to have so they can do what they're supposed to do. So if and I want to take a look at what Goffstown's negotiated here. If it's truly a merit-based system, Dubrulle was saying it on the way out. She's like, well, we have to make sure. Burt said he voted against it because he just believes it's going to be 3% for every teacher every year. That would be sort of commensurate with our experience in Manchester and what happened when we went to a so-called merit-based pay system. And even Elizabeth, she said on the way out, she said, well, yeah, I have to dig into that to find out what's there to make sure that it doesn't turn into that. But if nothing else, it's a guaranteed 1% increase.
Who would be against, Rich, a true merit-based system? I mean, you want to reward the great teachers out there.
Right. I don't think anybody is, but I don't think anybody knows how to structure it, frankly.
Yeah, so it's just a structure issue?
Well, I think it is. I mean, to me, by contract in Manchester, I don't know if you know this, but they're only allowed to teach 5 classes a day. And then they have to have their lunch period. Then they have to have their prep period. Then they have to have their off period. So out of 8 classes, they teach 5. And they're 45, 48 minutes. Why? If you got a teacher who wants to teach 4, 5, 6, 7 classes, I mean, there are other private schools that I know do this. They pay the teachers by the number of classes that they teach. Okay.
That sounds like a good idea to me.
Well, sure. I mean, if you got a teacher that'll teach 6 and one that only wants 4 and you're paying them by the class, fine. How about we just say, you know what, you want to be a teacher in the city of Manchester, you get paid $45,000, no steps, and we'll negotiate cost of living increases. I mean, if we're going to have a system, why not have a system?
That sounds smart to me.
Instead of one that says, okay, you start here, you go there, and over a 13-year period of time, we'll double your income because we're guaranteeing you pay raises of 5.5% on average. Right? What sense does that make? But anyway, so we'll try to find more on Goffstown Matters. I'll show you what we find. But it doesn't seem unreasonable for me to believe that there was a group of parents who, or a group of townsfolk who thought the schools or other services in the town weren't getting their due and decided to get elected so they could give them their due.
Live and local. News, sports, politics, traffic, and weather. Rich isn't afraid to tackle the tough questions.
Who told you you can eat my cookies? You talking to me?
Yeah, I hear you had a question for me.
It's all here on the Girard at Large radio program.
Hello?
On 90.7 WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio.
I'm sorry, who'd you say you were?
I am your host, Rich Girard. Thanks for tuning in.